want to tell you that District 17, of course, is entirely within Lee County. It doesn't cover all of Lee County, but it does cover serve folks who are in both the Tupelo Public School District and the Lee County School District. This is an open seat, so we are looking to elect a representative for House District 17 for a 4-year term in our state legislature. The party primary is very important next Tuesday, August 4th. And if you are a first-time voter or not familiar with how that works, yes, you must choose either to vote in the Democratic primary or to vote in the Republican primary. So what we have here tonight are 2 Democrats here, Jim Newman and Charles Pinson, will be facing off against each other in the Democratic primary. Likewise, Shane Gary and Mark French will be facing off in the Republican primary. So you must choose next Tuesday in which primary you will vote. So one of them will walk away a winner in each primary. They will then face off in the general election on November 3rd. So if you vote in the Democratic primary and then you're interested in another race in which there's a runoff in the Republican, for a Republican seat, you're out of luck. Once you choose to go to the Democratic primary, you cannot run in a Republican, you can't vote in a Republican runoff. So I want to make that clear so everyone understands. Our questioners for this evening, we sat down and developed what we believe are 12 good questions, all of which pertain to public education. And I'm delighted to introduce them briefly. See on the left over here, Lady Joe Babb, parent of kids in Tupelo Public Schools and currently serves on the Tupelo Public School Board of Trustees. Seated next to him, Tamika Shannon. Ms. Shannon is the principal of Verona Elementary School and parent of kids in public schools. And on the end, on the right, is Kate Faribault, who is not only Tupelo's Parent of the Year, but also Parent of the Year for the 1st Congressional District. So we're delighted that the 3 of them were willing to serve as our questioners tonight. I also scored a home run when I was able to secure Chris Kiefer's services as our moderator tonight. Chris has been the longtime education reporter for the Daily Journal, and he is now managing editor for multimedia and investigative reporting. So thanks to Chris. He's got one of the toughest jobs. So I want to tell you just a little bit about our format tonight so you know what's about to happen. We are going to invite all 4 candidates to stand simultaneously, because I know some people always like to be in the back and say, I can't see. So all 4 candidates are going to stand simultaneously in just a minute and offer you a 1-minute statement about why they're running seeking House District 17 seat. We're going to hold it to the time because we've got a lot of questions, and as time permits, we will allow some written questions. We will provide the index cards around 7 o'clock if you feel your question has not yet been answered or addressed. So around 7 or so, if you have a question you want to ask, it will be written on one of our index cards, and we will have folks collecting those. We will then turn those cards over to our panel of questioners because they know what questions are coming. They will quickly glance at your questions, and as time permits, if we finish our questions as time permits, written questions. So that's kind of how things work. Our candidates will offer a 1-minute opening statement. Thereafter, we have 12 questions lined up for them, and we will start first with Jim Newman here. The person who answers the question first has 2 minutes to answer. The following 3 have 1.5 minutes, and everyone has a crack at answering a question the first time. So we will rotate that. And as I said, time permitting, we will hand out index cards around 7 and collect those around 7:15. So we again appreciate y'all so much for being here and for the coverage. And I'm delighted to turn it over to Chris, and thank you to our candidates for being here and for offering yourselves to public service. Thanks.
Hello. I quickly also just want to reiterate what Sally said about how special it is to have an event like this. It's rare to have an opportunity in a legislative race to discuss such an important issue as education. I don't know if everyone saw New Daily Journal editor Rod Guajardo had written a column a couple weeks ago about just the importance of education in this region for so long, and so to have all 4 candidates here to talk about education, their views on education. Thanks to the sponsors and the candidates and for all of you to to be concerned enough about that to come here and to engage in your civic duty. As Sally said, we're going to be quick. We're going to get through the questions. I think they want to have us out of here by 7:45, so we want to get as many questions as we can. And with that, we're going to have candidates give a 1-minute introduction each, starting with Mr. Newman.
Good evening, glad you all are here. My name is Jim Newman. I'm 73, and I'm the contrary independent Democrat. I decided to run about a year and a half ago when my neighborhood got gerrymandered into Brian Aldridge's district. And I can tell you the reason that we all are here tonight is because our system has failed. We're at halftime in this game, folks. And if our coaches don't come up with a better plan than we've had the last 20 years, we're going to lose this game. And I don't know about you, but I got 4 grandkids. I'm not interested in losing this game. They deserve better than what we've been given. Full funding, vote yes for Prop 42, and we'll talk about it. But the Air Force had a cute little saying one time, we still do, about observe, orient, decide, and take action. That's what we're here for tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Charles Benson, and I believe that we are in a critical juncture in how we deal with education in our state. Our children deserve the right leadership at the right time, and I believe the time is now, and I believe I can provide that right leadership. I was born and reared here in Tupelo, graduated from Tupelo Public School District. My children, all 3 of them, graduated from the Tupelo Public School District, and now I've got 5 grandchildren. I'll be starting this fall at the Tupelo Public School District. I believe in our public schools. Why am I running? Well, a question was asked, what does God require of humankind? And the response is recorded in Micah was to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. I believe that our children have been done an injustice by way of the way that our state legislature has funded public education. Amen. I believe our children are being shortchanged, amen, by our legislature. Amen. And as a minister of the gospel, I have been called to speak out for those that can't speak for themselves. And surely our children can't speak for themselves. They can't go down to Jackson and vote for legislation, but I can. And so if I have to be like John the Baptist in the wilderness, I will do it. Vote for Charles' name.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Geary. I'm also a native of Tupelo and received my education in the Tupelo Public Schools. I know the benefits of having a strong school system can have on a community. Tupelo and Lee County have had all my life strong schools, and that has been a major part of the success in the economic development that we've had in this area. My top 2 priorities when I get to Jackson are strong education and economic development. I want to use my business management and accounting experience to make business-minded, common sense decisions when I'm in Jackson. So I ask you guys for your support. Thank you.
I'm Mark Prince. Obviously, I'm running for District 17 House. I've got 3 reasons that I'm running for this race. We need good, strong, proven leadership in Jackson, representing what's right and what's best for Northeast Mississippi. And my second and third reason is sitting right here. Stand up, Grayson Parsons. This is my daughter, 13, who's going into the middle school. This is my son, Carson, that's 11, going into model for the first time. So we're very invested in Tupelo Public Schools, and it's very critical. So that's why I'm running. Appreciate your support.
We now go to Joe Bath for the first question. We're going to start this way. Mr. Newman can answer the question first.
Good evening. As a Tupelo Public School Board member, I was thrilled to receive the support of our community in passing a $44 million bond issue in May. While our community is second to none, we were forced to pass this bond issue to fund projects like replacing out-of-date buses, technology, and repairing and replacing old roofs. Had state funding been delivered as promised, these projects would have easily been accomplished without issuing bonds. Do you support fully funding the Mississippi Adequate Education Program as a top priority in setting the budget, and why or why not?
I think it'd be dangerous in this crowd to say no. But anyway, of course I support it. And I remember how it got started. The state of Kentucky got sued because they had rural school systems that were not getting adequate funding. And several other states got sued. And Mississippi decided to take a preemptive step and develop an adequate education program. About the same time, William Winter was instituting or got passed a kindergarten program. And ever since then, our legislature has failed to support education. The kindergarten program did not get funded, and neither have a lot of other institutions or instruments of education. It's time that we face up to the facts. It's been 20 years. Republicans have had the opportunity. They have failed us. There's some good Republicans down there that have supported education. I don't want to trash them. But I tell you what, this district had one who did not support education. And that's when I made my decision to run. Now, it's real simple. We're going to support education. We're going to support Proposition 42. And I hope we get another opportunity to come back, because just supporting full funding is not going to solve all of our educational problems. We've got other problems we need to talk about. Thank you.
Joe, I unequivocally support full funding of MAEP. As a matter of fact, I believe that our children have been cheated out of $1.7 billion of school funding over the course of the life of MAEP. In 1997, since it was adopted, there are only 2 times that the state of Mississippi fully funded MAEP. And I think that's an injustice. And as you mentioned, if that funding had taken place, Lee County would have had to pass a $13.5 million bond issue so that they could do maintenance on their schools. As you mentioned, Tupelo, $44 million. That's taxpayers' money. We could have all received, all the residents of Tupelo received a tax decrease if we did not have to pass that $44 million bond issue. I believe that everybody in this room needs to support fully funding MAEP. Our teachers shouldn't have to go into their pockets to buy supplies for their classrooms. Bond issues should be implemented, costing taxpayers extra money. And it's affected our children in a real way. And I tell you, I am tired of being number 50 in the United States. How about you?
As a product of the Tupelo school system, I know the benefit of a strong school system. And I want Tupelo schools to be as successful as they can be. I want them to have the tools that they need so our children can be successful. I work with budgets every day as an accountant, and I know that they are difficult, and it's a balancing act that you have to weigh. Revenue versus expenditures. We live in a state that has a very limited income, and we are spread thin on the expenses and where we distribute them. We increased MAEP by $103 million for this budget year. There are changes that need to be made, but I want to make a good common sense business-minded decisions when we are funding the education system. I don't want to just haphazardly do it. I want to make a strong business-minded, well-thought-out decisions when we budget for the education system each year.
I fully support funding our schools and education, but we have to do it with a fiscally conservative plan. K through 12 was funded $2.5 billion this year, which is more than we've ever funded ever in the history of the state of Mississippi. With the MAEP at $2.2 billion, which is up, like he said, $106 million or 5% over the last year. Is that where we need to be? No. Can we get there? Yes. It's going to take creating jobs and growing our economy so that we raise the tax base to fund not only education, but infrastructure and technology and healthcare. There's a lot of needs in our state, and it's going to take, the best way to do it, there's other ways to do it, but the best way to do it is through economic development and growth and new jobs and job creation. I fully support funding. I think there's other ways we can fund it, but I do certainly fully fund. We need to get to fully funding. And the one thing I was going to say, if I've got time, is the plan for 42 that it's a proposal rather. It's not in 42, but the plan for 42 where we would phase it in over 7 years based on a 3% estimated growth rate of our economy, and take 25% of that and fund it. And again, 2022 is when they estimate it would be fully funded. That's a good plan. I'd be all for that. That's what we need to get to do.
Next question we go to Ms. Shannon. Charlie will be the first one to answer.
Enrolling in kindergarten currently is not required under Mississippi attendance laws. Kindergarten to fourth grade school, I see the negative impact of first grade students who did not attend any kindergarten program. They start the year far behind their peers. This gap is very difficult to close. What are your thoughts on changing Mississippi laws to make kindergarten attendance mandatory?
Miss Shannon, and don't be offended the other two parents have a call on Miss Shannon because she's the principal at Rona Elementary School where my wife works, and I spend a lot of time. I want to recognize her as principal. Early childhood education is very important. It's the foundation needed to be successful in school and in life. My wife and I, we actually ran a daycare facility for 10 years, and we're having a good start. We would encourage our prospective mothers and parents to even read their children in their womb. We required all of our staff to read their children daily. We even put in a testing system that where we could coordinate what we were doing and teaching in our daycare facility with what our children were going to be facing when they went into the kindergarten program. Yes, I believe that kindergartens need to be mandatory. I believe that we've seen the success that ECDC has had here in Tupelo in preparing our children to enter into kindergarten, and we just need to do better. One of the programs that we evolved here in Mississippi is the 4-star program, the 5-star rating program, the Quality Star program, which Ms. Kathy Grace, who's a product of this area, and also Ms. Lynn Daly, Darling, and Ole Miss implementing around. We need more of our daycares to understand that they cannot be just babysitting operations, that they need to be child care learning centers, and that's where I see.
I'm a proponent of early childhood education. I have seen the benefits that the ECEC program has done. I have a niece and a nephew that just completed that program, and the changes it's made them and the things that they have learned have been incredible. I believe it's the parents' choice to choose where their child wants to go to kindergarten, but I do think that it should be a requirement to go to the first grade that they have some sort of early childhood preparation before they get to the first grade, so that they will be as prepared as other school children are.
This is an easy question. Yes, we need to have mandatory kindergarten in Mississippi, unequivocally. I was able to work on the Mississippi Building Blocks program when I went through Leadership Mississippi. And so I know this isn't talking about pre-K, but it's so critical. The studies have shown and proven time and time again that early development is the critical stage for reading and learning about shapes. And the earlier we can get these kids to learn, the more ready they're going to be good citizens and be able to graduate and not be dropping out of school and get good jobs and be obviously good citizens. So absolutely, 100% kindergarten should be mandatory.
Yes, sir. I think kindergarten should be mandatory, alongside of other things like pre-K. If you got 44,000 4-year-olds and 1,700 of them in pre-K, you're looking for disaster when they hit kindergarten. I don't care what you've done. Mandatory pre-K needs to be the basis for starting. That's just the way it is. And it's got to be a holistic approach. Just starting pre-K and having kindergarten isn't going to fix the school system. We have a 18 to 35% poverty rate. And in that group of poverty, almost 20% or 61% rather, have no books at all. You understand that? They have no books at home. And you want to have kids going to school in first grade? We got to start earlier than kindergarten. We got to start with pre-K, and we got to start teaching parents how to be teachers as early as possible. It's the only way it's going to work.
Before we move on to the next question, I don't know, the mic's dropping in and out. Can everybody hear okay? Mrs. Faribault has the next question. Mr. Gary will be the first one to answer.
Now we're going to talk about pre-K. I have 3 children in the Tupelo Public School District. My youngest daughter was able to attend the district's public 4-year-old pre-K program this last year. It was a great program for her and has made her much more ready to start kindergarten this fall. Although Tupelo uses federal dollars for this program, most children throughout the state do not have a similar opportunity. Several studies, including one from America's Promise, show a vital link between pre-K and high school graduation. Do you feel Mississippi should spend more public dollars to expand pre-K access and improve quality?
As I said earlier, I am a proponent of the early childhood education program that Tupelo has. I would like to see that program expanded statewide. I would not have a problem at all with using state education dollars to fund that. Like you said, I have seen other studies similar to yours that show the benefits of starting young with the early childhood education. Their math and science skills are highly improved, graduation rates improved, and just the overall success of it in the older life is improved with when they start earlier. So I totally agree with that.
I think the budget currently is something like $6 million. That's definitely not enough. I think it serves with less than 4% of the kids. So, yeah, we need it. It's an area that's got to be given more attention. And I think I said it earlier, I was very involved with the infancy stages of the pilot program that's now Mississippi Building Blocks. I'm familiar with Excel by 5 and the other great programs that are out there as well. But, I'm in full favor of early childhood education.
Obviously, we're all in favor of it. Go figure. Let's try to figure out how we're going to pay for it first. You know, it's great to put out platitudes about, I'm in favor of early childhood education, I'm in favor of kindergarten, but we got to pay for it, folks. And the money is just out there. One of the Republicans says that the state's going to put 3%, have a 3% growth rate. Mr. Frierson says it's going to be closer to 1.5. And if you read this morning's or yesterday's paper, you're going to find out that it's already starting, excuse me, to come out of that 3%. So it's not this great big bubble out there that we just go get money from and throw it at education. It's going to take some tough decisions, tough choices, and people that are willing to say no to the leadership. I don't care to be on a committee if I have to vote the way you tell me to, because we have a legislative official.
Obviously, all four of us are in favor and support of it. And one of the ways that you get things done is through priorities. I think that we have not made our children our number one priority in Jackson, and they need to be, because our children are our future. And we're sending money down there for their education, but it's not being applied to it. You know, Mark talked about the 4% enrolled in pre-K funded by the government. About 1,786 children are enrolled in pre-K that's funded by the state. That's out of 41,000 pre-K students. 41,000. And we in Mississippi have a poverty rate of 34%. Now, what do you think that is? That sounds like a prescription for a disaster, doesn't it? And unless we do something about it, and we need to start planning now. So I'm in favor of us increasing the amount of allocation of funds to our pre-K program. And let me tell you how important it is. One of the reasons that it's so important is that we've got to do something to stop the pipeline of our young people going from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse.
That's right.
Mr. Joe Batten has our next question. Mr. Prince will be the first one to answer.
Okay, this is a two-part question, I apologize.
Take it easy, Joe.
Do you support or oppose vouchers that send public money to private schools, religious schools, homeschools, or virtual schools? That's the first part. Secondly, what is your position on out-of-state privatization interest groups such as Empower Mississippi funding political campaigns in Mississippi?
All right, so the first part was vouchers. Tupelo's got a rich tradition of having a great public school. Tupelo and Lee County, a great tradition of excellent education. We need to protect and improve upon what we have here. We don't need voucher systems. We don't need what happened in Tunica, for example. That's a failed public school system that had to be taken over by the state. We're not in that situation in Tupelo and Lee County. I'm very proud of our schools here, and we're going to support them and make them even better. So I'm not for the vouchers for private schools can be paid for by private money. The second part was out-of-state groups spending money in Mississippi. There are areas of the state that have needs, that needs alternative education. Tunica County is a perfect example of that. I don't have a problem with outside people investing in our state. If it means good leadership and if it brings an improvement to the quality of education for our kids, then so be it. But I don't think we have any need in Tupelo or Lee County for any system like that.
Vouchers. What a topic. Most of the time, vouchers also include spending your tax or sending your tax money to the school. We don't have enough tax money right now to fully fund education. Why in God's name would you want to send our tax money to a charter school? Give me a break. You can't have it both ways. Secondly, out-of-state schools coming in. Frankly, I don't care if they're private schools, parents want to pay for them, that's fine. But I will caution you, it wasn't but about 30 or 40 years ago that in the Delta we had academies. And most of you know what academies were. And if you don't remember, go back to your history books. They were private schools for whites only. You don't see many of them today. But if we let some of these out-of-state operations come in and some charter schools, we're headed back that direction.
I believe we created a problem. I hear the voices of those parents that have children with special needs. But I believe that part of the problem is that we've not been funding public education as it should be. I'll give you an example. My wife, she comes home to me every night. This past year, she had her caseload for IEP students because there was a cut in the number of speech therapists at the school. And part of that is directly related to funding. Now, these special needs children, they need speech therapy, they need occupational therapy, some physical therapy. all of that is applied in our public school system. What we need to do is show up the funding there so these parents can get what they need. I grant you there may be some that they can't get their needs fulfilled there, but it will be a lot less than the total number that I think we got about 50,000 folks that are 6 years old that are part of the special needs group. And so I believe that we need to go ahead and fund public education. Now, this thing about out-of-state money, I am really concerned about out-of-state money trying to dictate who's going to get elected to represent us. That's my concern.
We are lucky here in Tupelo and Lake County to have really strong public schools that serve the needs of our students. I think our focus needs to be on what is best for those students. Like Mark talked about, Tunica County spends over $10,000 per student in their county, and they have failed 26 out of 31 of the things they need to be accredited. Tupelo school system spends a little over $7,000. The state average is, I think, $8,100 per child. That's pretty sad that school spends that much money and they can't even do a better job than that for their children. If the parents and those children are trapped in a school district that is not serving their needs, I think that they should be able to go to another school in their district to get the education that they need. If that school system is not supporting them, we are failing that kid. And we need to do something to help give them the education that we promised them. Thanks. I didn't answer that. Sorry, Joe. I have not accepted any out-of-state money, but I think that the best thing to do is to focus on what we can do best for Mississippi and focus our efforts on what needs to be done in Mississippi and not outside interests.
Our next questioner is Ms. Shannon. Mr. Newman is up first.
Mississippi ranks at or near the bottom of the nation on most educational rankings. What is your plan to improve public education in this state? What are you going to do personally to help improve our state?
That's $1 million question for all of us, isn't it? I'd like to shake up our education system, beginning with the State Board of Education. Do any of you realize that the governor appoints 5 of the 9 members? Lieutenant governor appoints 2, the speaker appoints 2. We need to get politics out of education. There's a way to get a State Board of Education without having political appointments. We don't appoint we do hire our superintendent. And I think we can do some of the same things on the state level. Second, we have so many interests. The State Board of Education, the governor's office, lieutenant governor, the speaker of the House, the state budget committee on education, the House Education Committee, and then the local committee. How can any one school system answer for 6, 7, or 8 different bosses? I can't do it, and they can't either. So we've got to shake things up. All I can tell you is it's halftime. What we've been doing for the last 20 years has gotten us where we are today. That's why we're here tonight. It's time for some serious changes and some serious talk. And I'll tell you, the Republicans haven't delivered in the last 20 years. It's time for people to step up. And part of that responsibility is each and every one of you. In the last election, Trent Kelly got elected with 18% of the vote in the district. Folks, 18%. That's where we got a school problem too. It's your responsibility to get out and vote, to become educated, to become involved.
we can't continue to give away our children's future. We've got to make some tough choices. We've got to develop our priorities. We can't afford to give all the tax breaks that we're giving for folks to build malls. We've got to negotiate. I understand. I was a board member of CDF. I was a board member at North Mississippi Health Services. Created was our governing board when I worked at Daily Journal. I understand the value of economic development and job recruitment, but we need to do more like what we did in the recruitment of Toyota. Yes, they got some tax abatements, but what they did when there was a negotiated contract where they would put money back into the community, over $50 million. And those are the kind of deals that we need to make with industries when they come in here. Some other tough choices that we've got to make, we've got too many school districts. And they fall and fall, consolidation of school districts, but I'll tell you what, in our Tupelo County, they're going to be better for our Tupelo County and Starkville School District coming together. That's a tough decision, amen. But we got to make some tough decisions for our children. They deserve that.
Piggyback on what Charles said, I do agree that consolidating some of the school districts would be very beneficial, especially since we are short on our funding of education. We have 152 school districts in Mississippi and 82 counties. Each of those school districts has a superintendent, and the average salary of a superintendent in the state of Mississippi is $103,000. So there are counties in the Delta that have multiple school districts. These counties have small, 1,200, 400 to students in those school districts. So why not consolidate these school districts that are so small, not performing very well, where we can consolidate into one area where we can focus our efforts on those schools. I would also like to come up with a program that would encourage more parental involvement. I've spoken to many teachers while I've been running, and a lot of teachers say that if we can improve parental involvement, that would help greatly in the education of those children. The teachers are doing all they can in the classroom, but more has to be done at home. We need to find a way to encourage the parents or the guardians of these kids to get involved in their children's education. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the question was, what are we specifically going to do personally? I'll be the first to tell you, I don't consider myself, nor do I claim to be, an education expert. But what I can tell you is that if I go to Jackson, I will reach out to our education experts and our leaders. And a lot of them are in this room tonight. I know I saw Dr. Loden come in. I know I saw Sean Brevard. Folks that I respect, that I know have a rich tradition. I saw Amy Heyer here. I know a lot of you personally, and I will be an open door and seek your advice when it comes to educational issues. And that's what I'm looking for personally.
Moving to Starball with the next question. Mr. Penson is the first one to answer.
Fewer than 23% of Mississippi special education students earned a diploma in 2013 after 4 years of school, compared to about 63% nationally. What do you propose to do to improve this statistic?
Yes, we had some alarming statistics that come out about the graduation rates of our special education students in both Lee County and the Tupelo school system. We're not anywhere near what the rest of the country is doing, and we need to pay some special attention. Now that we've been alerted to it, one of the things that's going on in Lee County is that they're doing a special remediation program. It's hard for a child to learn if they can't read. If they can't read, it's difficult. And so some of our children need that extra time, that special remediation to get them on track. What happens is that some of our teachers are spending so much time trying to prepare for testing that they don't have enough time to spend with one-on-one remediation of their children. And so one of the things that I look at as a way to help with that is remediation in the classroom.
There's one thing I know about it might be people with special needs. But we have obviously failed our special needs children. If there was enough groundswell of support to pass a bill this year for those kids, somewhere along the way, the Department of Education failed those children. And enough parents got involved and got the support of both houses of the legislature, the lieutenant governor and the governor, to pass that bill pretty strongly. I think that we need to support these kids. They have needs that need to be met, and we should be willing to fund those programs to get them the skills that they need to be a part of our society and to be a productive part of our society. So I would be a supporter of special needs education and funding of that program. Thanks.
I agree. You know, when you have 22% of anybody, that's all that can graduate, and it's a broken system, or somewhere down the line we fail. You know, being a business guy, I can tell you that competition is good sometimes. It wakes us up. It's going to make us better if we see that some of these dollars and some of these kids that were, you know, not getting the education that their parents felt they deserved and that they needed, and they're going to take those kids to another school and they get that education. It's good. It's going to be competitive. It's going to step our game up. Maybe that's what we need, because that's obviously what's happened. But I support. Again, it's all about funding. You know, we have a certain pie. We have a certain amount of money that we have to spend and allocate across all the needs of our state. It's about, you know, the best way, again, in my opinion, to grow the economy is through job creation, economic development. You get additional tax revenues that will grow the tax base, and then we increase funding for all these key programs. So that's what we got to do.
Go back.
I would be embarrassed with 23%. If I had 10 kids and 2.5 of them managed to graduate, I would be embarrassed at how well I parented. And that's our job, as to parent the school system, to get involved in it. And this didn't just happen overnight, folks. It's been this way for a number of years. And all of a sudden, 23% graduate. Where have we been? Our legislators have had their heads stuck in the sand. It's time for the flamingos to fly and fly further south. Thank you.
Move back to Mr. Babb for the next question. Mr. Gary will be the first one to answer.
There are going to be issues in which the will of your constituents will differ from pressure you will receive from party leadership and from lobbyists. What will guide your decision-making process during those times? Will you commit to representing the will of your constituents over outside pressure?
I sure will. It's my goal that when I get in the legislature, that I will use, besides practical consideration, what I feel is the thing that would do the best, serve the best needs of Tupelo County. Like with an education issue, I would be happy to consult either Superintendent Loden or any of the principals of the schools that I'm friends with, any of the teacher friends that I have, to see how that these issues would affect them. If it's a business decision, I would not have any problem contacting local business leaders, the CDF, create those groups to see how these bills or pieces of legislature will affect our area up here. You guys will elect me to send me to Jackson to represent you, not the special interest groups, and not the speaker, and not the lieutenant governor.
I believe in true representative government. I believe that a true representative is just that, a true representative of the constituents. I have personally knocked on about 1,500 doors in the last month and a half to talk about the issues, to meet the constituents, to garner support. And it's been met with open arms. A lot of times I'm the only person that has made an effort to go and meet with them. Ashley and I have been out every night talking to voters. And so it's very important, I think, to meet the constituents, to understand their needs, understand what's right. And what I found out that's so pleasing is that a lot of their needs are definitely in line with my thoughts and my needs. So it's been a privilege and an honor, and I hope you'll consider me for this seat. Thank you.
We apparently haven't been knocking on some of the same doors. Because what I hear from a lot of wealthy constituents is that they want charter schools. They want vouchers to follow the kids to the charter schools so that we reduce the money that's available. They want private schools to be able to get taxpayer money. That's not my constituents, folks. My constituents that we're talking about tonight graduated at 12th grade. Parents might want taxpayer money to go to the private school so they don't have to pay for it. But we're here about public education. And my constituents are not always on the right side. And that's part of the reason we're here tonight. 20 years of Republican funding of education, and we're here tonight.
First of all, I think that you can count on me to be supportive of public education. I have to go home every night to my wife, who is a public educator. That puts food on our table. I tell folks as I've been campaigning that, look, I'm not trying to become a professional politician. I'm 62 years old. I'm retired from the job, drawing a pension. I started drawing a Social Security. I pastored a small church. I'm not in it for the income. I'm not in it to start a new career. I'm not in it to gain higher heights. And my mantra is, if I have to holler for 4 years, that's what I'll do. Even if it means that I won't be reelected because there's somebody lying in the coffers of an opponent. You know, in DeSoto County, 4 people that voted for public education, they were Republicans. The Republican leadership went out and found 4 other folks and funded their campaigns. I mean, totally funding their campaigns. Now, what do you think they're going to do when they go down to Jackson if they elect?
The next question goes to Ms. Shannon. Mr. Prince will be the first one to answer.
How do you personally stay informed of what's happening in the school system? You have standards that change, curriculum changes, evaluation instrument changes, accreditation model changes. How are you going to know what's going on? How will your office know how to continue to lead because so much changes within the school system?
Well, obviously, if it's something, I think in the legislature that's brought up as a bill that's being talked about, and I'll become privy to it, and I'll start researching, the background. I don't know that I'll be able to be on the forefront of something that's happening here, maybe that's not being talked about in Jackson, but certainly I'll be abreast of any issues that become a bill or needs to be voted on or anything. You know, plus my next door neighbor's a teacher, and we've got a lot of friends that are teachers and educated. My 2 kids that are in public education, obviously. So I'm still very informed, and my wife's very involved. So, but I don't know if that answered your question effectively, but I'll be very well abreast and before I vote on anything, you can rest assured that I will have done my homework and talk to the right leadership before I vote.
That's a real difficult question. Here's why. The House introduced 38 bills last year for education. Everything from how fast the bus can go, to whether they can use propane, you name it, the House was in. They're in everything, folks, and they need not to be in everything. We have a state board of education, we have a local superintendent, and we have local people that can make a lot of these decisions. It's time, like I said earlier, to get the politics out. Let the teachers and the superintendents teach the kids. It's not something they don't know how to do. It's their career. Give them the opportunity.
Ditto. Absolutely. Let the professionals take care of education. We shouldn't have education as a political football game with our children as a football. We need to let the professionals do what they do so well. How do I keep abreast of change? I read a lot. Every morning I read, especially the newspaper. Not only do I read, but I inquire. Oh, thank you, brother. That's right. Every morning. But not only do I read, but I participate in our school system. Several of us sitting at these tables are involved in advisory committees. I'm on the Pierce Street Advisory School Committee. I don't have a child in there, but I have a grandchild in there, and I'm concerned about the future of my grandchildren. I serve on the Tupelo High School Advisory Committee. I want to know what's going on about, I understand about these testing issues. I volunteered to monitor when the children are taking tests. I actually even volunteered for Splash last week because I wanted to see what's going to take place with my grandchild going into public schools for the first year. That's how you get involved. Dr. Gerald Loden, asking him about things. Eddie Prather, who's a school board member, and Kenneth Wheeler and Ron Hudson. Asking, we've got some professionals, amen, that know what they're doing. That's why we got where we are.
You named off a lot of things. I wasn't quite sure what you just said, but it shows that there's a lot that I need to learn about education once I get to Jackson. There's a lot I have to, legislator has to know about a lot of areas, and I can't know everything about everything. But that's why that I plan to use the experts in those fields to be my sounding board on whatever issue comes up. If it's about a school issue, like I said earlier, I would of course call up the superintendent of the school area, or one of the school board members, or any of the teacher friends that I have. Any issue that comes up, I will strongly research so that I will be an informed member of that legislature when those issues come up for it.
Before we move on, say a quick bias. I appreciate gentlemen clapping about reading the newspaper. And up on those issues, I appreciate you did a great job under Lloyd's editorship. And what you said, I want to be sure to also introduce Rod Mohardo as our new editor, and I don't know if everyone had a chance to meet him, but we're in great hands. Moving on to the next question. Start off as the next question, and Mr. Newman's up first.
About 200,000 Mississippi voters signed a petition to place Initiative 42 on the ballot in November, with the goal of strengthening the state's commitment to fully funded schools. Some critics of the measure say it will strip power from the legislative branch. Will you personally vote for Initiative 42? Why or why not?
I signed the petition. I signed the petition, so obviously I support it. One of the interesting things is that petition, or the legislation rather, about full funding has one word in it, shall. And as a child, I learned what shall means. It's not like Bill Clinton, what the definition of is. Shall has a particular meaning. And if you believe in the Ten Commandments, you know what the word shall means. And I can promise you God knows what it means. Yes, I support 42. No, it will not reduce the power of the legislature. Quite frankly, if they didn't like the word and they didn't like the way the law was written, they should have changed it before we had to go to the extent of having a petition. But they didn't do their work in the first place. So 200,000 people signed a petition. And now they want to change it and put in some substitute language to confuse the issue. I'm telling you, people down there will go to a lot of lengths to keep control over education. I don't like to say it very often, but you know, we still in some parts of the state have a plantation mentality about education. And some of the people down there don't want to give it up when it's time.
Yes, I will vote for Initiative 42. I worked hard with some folk in this room gathering signatures for Initiative 42. Now, this initiative speaks directly to a previous question. Will you represent the people that elect you, or will you look at being influenced by other outside interests? 200,000 almost Mississippians signed this petition, and we look up, and when the legislature goes into session, what do? They pass a piece of legislation to dilute it, to compete with it, hoping to defeat it, because they are not listening to the people, and then the people decide. For the first time in history, when it comes to a ballot initiative, our state legislature decided that they had to come up with their own. Yes, I'll vote for Initiative 42.
Mr. Gary?
I support our public schools, and I also support the separation of powers that were established by our founders. This referendum is part of the democratic process. If the citizens of the state of Mississippi signed the petition, they got enough signatures to put it on the ballot. So it is part of the the democratic process has worked. If they voted in, it is voted in. It is, I personally will not vote for it, but if the citizens of the state of Mississippi vote for it, then it will become a law.
I will also preface that I fully support and want to fund our education system. I want nothing but the best for our children. But here's the only problem, and by the way, if you had read Jim Barksdale's article from Saturday, he probably did the best job of arguing for 42. Jim Barksdale was a very brilliant conservative man. But here's my only problem with 42. Our state was founded, and the country was founded with the separation of powers. The legislature has the basic core function of appropriating funds. That's a core function of our legislature. That 42 will change that. If you want to change that, and you don't want the legislature involved with the education system, then just know that that's what's going to happen. And again, as I said earlier, I'm all for the ramp up period. Let's take the economic growth that we anticipate that we're going to have and give a targeted percentage to schools so that we can gradually get to full funding. But what if it doesn't happen? What if we don't have that growth? We still have to find a way to grow jobs and grow our economy so that we can fund education. I'd rather fund education next year than wait 10 years and not have the economic growth that they estimate they were going to have to do this. That's the only problem I have with 42, is that it's going to change the constitution of our state, and it's going to put all the power of education into the judicial branch of the state. That's a fact.
Before we move on to the next question, we've made it to 7. We've got half an hour left. We're going to collect questions for people from the audience that we'll try to fit in at the end if we have time.
Yeah, if you have a question in mind that has not yet been addressed, and of course our panel of questioners know what questions are coming. If you have a question in mind that has not yet been addressed, Jim Casey and Stephanie Stanfield thank y'all for helping, have some index cards and pens. You're welcome to submit a written question. They'll pick your cards up in about 10 minutes. We'll give them to the panel of questioners. They'll quickly review them and choose some cogent questions. So we would ask, to the best of your ability, that you try to ask a question of a general nature for all candidates to answer. Thank you.
And with our next question, we go back to Mr. Bass, and the first one to answer will be Mr. Henry.
All of you have talked about a very limited financial pie that's available for our state. Yet the leadership in Jackson this past year introduced numerous measures to further cut that pie in the form of tax credits and tax cuts. What is your position on those items that would reduce our state's revenue?
I'm opposed. We can afford to cut the revenue stream in our state. By God, we can't afford, we're not fully funding what we, and here's the thing about NAACP. This talks about an adequate education. This is not an excellent level of education that is funding. It's talking about maybe if you want to put it in ABCs, a C level of education. And we can't even fund a C level of education statewide, and we want to cut the revenue stream? No, I believe that's good. So I'm opposed to any income tax cuts at this point across the board. Did I answer the question?
Before I voted for any tax cut, I would have to see some very strong evidence that decreasing these taxes would help us in getting to a budget where we are closer to funding education, closer to funding our roads and bridges that need to be repaired, closer to funding and any kind of expansion on Medicaid that people want. There are, like Joe said, we are a very, very poor state with very, very few resources, and we're spread thin. We have to take care of the budget needs that we are falling short on now, and any tax cuts that are proposed need to in some way grow business and in a form that is substantial before I would support it.
Fundamentally, I'm for limited government and less taxes, especially at the federal level. That's where a lot of our waste is, a lot of money that we can get back in our pockets is very wasteful. But at the state level, we have to be smart. We have a certain amount of dollars, and those dollars are important for all of those programs, education, infrastructure, everything we've been talking about. So I'm not for any tax cuts right now unless we had a windfall and our economic development outlook is outstanding. But right now we just can't afford to. We've got too many other needs in the state. And by the way, I was a happy supporter and voted for the $44 million bond issue and rallied for it, and paid my fair share for Tupelo and get those dollars back in our schools. So I'm for all that.
Of course, I'm for it too. The state budget allocates $2,842,501,000 for education, excluding institutions of higher learning. Like we said earlier, we have 150 some school districts. We've got to consolidate some of these. We've got to make the hard choices. We cannot continue as we have. And the thing that is most disturbing to me in this past legislation is that one morning, they turned down a bill. They had $21 million worth of funding. And that afternoon, they came back after lunch and passed a $60+ million tax rebate for a strip mall in DeSoto County. And you want to tell me where their priorities are? You don't need to tell me. I can look and see. I'm not blind. You shouldn't be either. We need some changes in Jackson and some serious changes. We need to shake it up there, folks. It's halftime.
We'll go to Ms. Shannon for the next question. Mr. Gary will be up first.
Teachers were recently given a $2,500 raise, but their salaries still rank lower than those of many states and lower than many other industries. Meanwhile, assistant teachers only make $12,000 a year, and the bill to give them a raise last year failed. Does either group need to be given a raise?
I support competitive salaries for teachers. And I'm sorry that I thought that assistant teacher raise failed first and then passed the second time. I'll have to go back and look at that. But assistant teachers make way too less. And I do support pay raises for assistant teachers. They do a lot of hard work in the classroom, and I support that 100%. I support, like I said, competitive salaries for teachers based on merits where they are proving that they are doing the best job that they can. I, at my job, give performance-based raises and bonuses, and I am not against passing that on to teachers as well in the education industry.
Yeah, I agree that we should always pay our teachers competitively. We want to have the best and brightest teachers for our children. So, you know, if some other state's paying more, then it's easy for them to go to Alabama or Arkansas or Tennessee if they're going to get a higher wage. So we need to be very competitive with salaries. I was disappointed when the Senate stopped the assistant teacher pay raise. The House passed it, and the Senate blocked it. I do think our assistant teachers need more pay as well. I'm all for that. Thanks.
For those of you that don't know it, the poverty level is less than $11,000 a year. Assistant teachers make 12. That's pathetic. Let me show you something. In 2009 and 10, teachers made $42,308 as a starting salary. They now make a little less than $41,000. The red line is Mississippi. The next line up is other states, and the top is the U.S. We actually lost teacher salary in the last couple of years. And if you go all the way back to the 04-05 teacher salary, it was 40,000 average, beginning 40,575. Now, if you take each year, they got $159 a year raise to get up to 41,000 this year. I remember when teachers were considered professionals. I don't know any doctor that would work for 41,000. I don't know any attorney that would work for 41,000. And I don't think any good CPA would work for 41,000. We need to pay our teachers a heck of a lot better. Thank you.
I agree, Jim. And most of our assistant teachers that are making $12,000, that figure that you mentioned was just for an individual. If they've got families at home, how can you raise a family, take care of a family, $12,000 a year? When I was, those of you that are 50 plus, y'all remember when we were going to school, the teachers were some of the most respected professionals in our community. I remember a time when the doctors went house to house, and they didn't make these huge $1 million salaries. Amen. But somewhere along the line, we just devalued what teachers bring to the table. I mean, these are individuals that we entrust the lives of our children to, that are forming them into being productive citizens. The one that we are entrusting to teach them to be individuals with a strong character, amen, with a good work ethic, and all of that. And we don't value them enough to pay them at least our competitive states, our surrounding states are paying. I think it's a travesty. I think our priorities are out of order, and we've got to do something about it. Amen. Our children deserve better, and we need to give them better.
We now go to Ms. Faribault, and this question will start with Mr. Prince.
I'm the kind of person who calls my state representatives and senator to find out how they're going to vote on an education item. How will constituents be able to contact you to express their will, interest, and concerns?
Cell phone, email. I'm very accessible. I'm a tech guru, so I can get, I'm very accessible. Anybody in this room that's ever tried to call me either got me on the first call or I immediately called them back. So I'm going to be very accessible. And we look forward to those conversations.
Being very accessible in Jackson sometimes is very difficult. You don't have a staff. You've got to call the main line and leave a message. When somebody delivers you a message that so-and-so called, you need to call them back. So you got to have their cell phone number or their email address. I've maintained a blog for over 2 years. If I go to Jackson, that blog will be updated every evening, let you know what's going on. You can take part in it as many others have and find out. But it's not just that simple to get in touch with your legislator. The best thing you can do is when he comes home on the weekend, you want to get a legislator's attention, call him at 5:30 in the morning. He will not forget you.
I'm going to be like my friend Steve Hopper. You be able to get me anytime. Now, I want to tell you all, those of you that know me a long time, we moved back to Tupelo in 1980. I've got a phone number that's been in the telephone directory of Tupelo since 1980, 844-3857. It's public. Anybody can call me. My cell phone, I did a radio program for a year. And what it was called was Wake Up Wednesday, where I was trying to educate voters about voting in your best interest. Voting for folks that are going to represent you. And I would give even my cell phone number over the air if they wanted to talk more about it. I'm going to be accessible. You can get me by cell phone, by telephone, by Facebook, by Messenger. You will have access to me, I guarantee you that.
I also plan to be very accessible. 5:30 in the morning might be a little early. I'll be more than happy to return any phone calls and messages you may leave at 5:30 in the morning as soon as I wake up. But I have put my cell phone number on the cards I was sending out. I have my Facebook page, can be messaged at any point. You can tweet me, you can Instagram me. One thing I've also thought about doing is holding some town hall meetings, one during the legislative session and one after the legislative session, to be able to talk about, one, what's going on while I'm down there, and then once the session is over, one, to talk about what we just passed, how it affects you, my reasoning for those votes.
That's ready for me in a minute. Okay, we'll go to whoever wants to ask. I guess we'll just keep the same rotation, so we'll start. Go across. We'll go. We'll give everybody a minute and a half.
Okay, again, I'm sorry I had a two-part question, trying to cover a lot of ground. But I got these questions from multiple people in the audience, so I want to serve our audience tonight. Number one, have any of you signed, or would you sign if asked by party leadership, a pledge to be loyal to the party? Number two, have any of you taken money from Empower Mississippi?
Answer's real simple, no. I don't know what else I can say. Not interested in the money, don't need it. Not for most groups anyway. So the answer's no.
No, on both of those questions, party or Mississippi Empowerment PAC. And if I could, because since we have a minute and a half, only question about accessibility. As one of my church members, is Jim Agnew in the audience? They called me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I answered.
My loyalty will be to my conservative ideas, not to the Republican Party. My plan is to be a conservative member of that House. I will use my conservative ideals to make the votes that I feel are best to the best serve Lee County and Tupelo. I have not taken any special interest money except from the Bully Block Health State.
I have not signed any pledge to party. I have received funding from Empower Mississippi, but I've also been endorsed by the Mississippi Association of Realtors, the Mississippi Association of Home Builders and Remodelers, and also the Mississippi Association of Manufactured Housing Association. So when I was called about receiving some money from Empower, I was very clear to them that I'm not supportive of the voucher system. I'm not supportive of a lot of what they stand for. So, but I'm happy to take a check from anybody in this room. I'm not signed or said that I was going to vote in a certain way or be aligned with any special interest for sure.
What are your thoughts on test scores measuring a student's success as well as the success of a school district?
Andrew, we'll let you go first.
Well, first of all, what I'd like to say is testing, really the purpose of testing is to identify where a child is. It should be used to identify what special instruction they need to bridge the gap between where they ought to be and where they are. Testing shouldn't be used as a measure to penalize either the student or the school. I am so glad that our State Department of Education heard the cry of many of our citizens that there was just absolutely too much testing going on. And so they reduced the state testing down to 1 a year. Even in our schools, our local schools, they have cut the number of tests on their assessment testing in half in our local district. And I'm so very proud of that. Our education professionals, they are listening. And they understand that they need more time in that classroom, and they don't need the stress, nor do our students need the stress of too much testing.
Would you mind repeating the question? Just so I'm sure.
What are your thoughts on test scores measuring a student's success as well as the success of a school district?
Like Charles says, I think testing had gotten a little out of hand. But they dialed that back a little bit. The way we establish meeting certain goals is to test those students. So I think that testing has its merits, but I don't think that that should be the only measure of that child or that school district. There are a lot of factors that go into those things, and I don't think that one test or one group of tests can show the true value of what that child has learned or what that school system is achieving at.
I was glad that we withdrew from the park assessments. Testing in and of itself, obviously it does, especially at the earlier ages, especially third grade, reading assessments and that kind of thing to tell you where you are. That is important. I know my kids would love to have tier tests, right? But no, tests are important, but the quantity obviously got out of hand there for a while. I don't necessarily think, I do feel accountability is important, certainly, but not to when it comes to funding school.
Of course, we need testing at some level to determine where students rank, where schools rank, and how well we're doing as an educational system compared to the rest of the country, because we live in a global market now. Thanks to Toyota, thanks to Nissan, thanks to all of the international people we have in this state now. We live in an international market. We are measured today, not by what we are doing ourselves, but by other countries and other people. Yes, we need testing. Doesn't have to be quite as strong as it was. And as far as the school systems are concerned, they need to be measured as well. I mentioned earlier about shaking things up. We've got small schools that need to be combined, and we've got the 1,000-student schools and the 5,000s and the 7,000 and 8,000s like Tupelo. We're here tonight, and we're spending most of our time talking about Tupelo. Let me tell you, we're blessed. Travel around the state. Go down to Nettleton. Listen to the principal talk about holes in the roof and buckets they have to put out when it rains. We need to talk about the state of Mississippi. The problem's not Tupelo. It's the state.
All right, we'll ask Mr. Gary. We'll go first.
Given the repeated reference to economic development funding education, how do you see recruiting business to the state that pay an adequate wage to support families and community growth when we have very poor education markers such as a minimal early childhood program and graduation rate and lack of adequate funding for K through 12?
Businesses have chosen to come to Mississippi because we have a cost of living. They've come to Tupelo area because we have a strong school system, strong healthcare system, great infrastructure, roads, bridges. The way to bring these kinds of industries to Mississippi is to continue to invest in our roads and bridges, invest Even though we are not funding education to the level that the formula says it should be, we are putting a lot of money into our education system. And we have, with most of the state, that has really good schools. Those industries go to those areas that have the good schools. We need to focus on areas where the schools are underperforming, see what we can do to prop those schools up and to bring them up to our level. What can we do in those communities to get those communities as involved in their schools as Tupelo has done? I think Tupelo and Lee County is a wonderful example for the rest of the state on how it can be done to marry a strong education system with strong economic development.
Economic development and creating jobs to me is the most important. That coupled with education, because they really go hand in hand, they really do. For us to grow our economy, we've got to add jobs, we've got to attract more industry. But to do that, we've got to have a strong education system. We've got to have, like you said, they go hand in hand. We've got to have good infrastructure. So I am a full proponent of doing everything we can to attract new industry and new jobs through entrepreneurism and supporting those folks that want to be entrepreneurs and open new business. So we've got to support that. That's how we grow an economy. That's how we grow an economy. Jobs, jobs, jobs.
Yeah, it's a good idea to have lots of jobs. We've got a lot of jobs in Tupelo. We've got a lot of jobs in this state. And we've got a lot of poverty in this state. It's the quality of the jobs that count.
That's right.
What would attract a business to come? I'll tell you what, one of the things, you know, everything's up for discussion. But it might not be a bad idea. Let's take down the flag and let's put a new flag back. I'm not through. On that new flag, let's put the emblem of Nissan and Toyota and some of the other big companies, Yokohama Tire. Let's become an advertiser nationwide that this is a good place to come. Provide the advertising. But it's time that the flag comes down. It's time that we expand Medicaid. It's time that we start taking care of the poor because they don't have health care. We need a holistic approach. And we're not talking about it tonight, folks, but we need to be, because education is not a single kid showing up at school. It's what goes on at the house and from birth forward.
I'm ready to put Toyota on the flag. I really agree with Mr. Rebel. Flag needs to come off of our state flag. But I was a board member of CDF, and I understand there's such a thing as called churn. That we have to constantly be recruiting jobs because there are so many. For every new industry that you recruit, there's another industry going out of business. For every Toyota that we recruit, there's a lane that's going out of business. And so we've got to constantly be recruiting. But here is the thing that I am really concerned, even here in Tupelo and Lee County, when we get those Toyota jobs in, are all of our citizens equipped to enter into those jobs? One of the things I think that we need to really concentrate on is the bottom quartile in our school districts. Those that are not the A students, those that don't come from the medium income families, those that don't have parents that go over their lessons with them in the evenings, those that don't have good study habits that stay up late at night. I think that if we concentrate on that bottom quartile and lift them up, the whole community gets lifted up. And all those jobs, those good paying jobs, the folks that live here can get them.
All right.
Thank you very much. That's all the time we have. That concludes tonight's forum. I want to thank everybody for coming again. Thank you for your questions. I thank the candidates for agreeing for participation in this and having a good live. But before we go, before I get to the question, I want to thank you. special thanks. Tonight is kind of a swan song for Valley Gray. We've done so much in this area.